You are on the screen.
Good morning from India to everyone present with us on the 8th day of IBWGST 2021. With your agile involvement in the last 14 sessions, I am certain that IBWGST 2021 have met or rather exceeded our expectations. Please keep the energy up. Dr. Virendra M. Tiwari, Honorable Director of National Geophysical Research Institute, Hyderabad, will deliver the first lecture for today. The topic of his talk is Lithospheric Structure of Himalayan Condition Zone. It is an honor for us that a person of his stature has accepted to deliver a talk at IBWGST 2021. Today we have with us Professor Jigar Kayal, former Deputy Director General of Geological Survey of India as a session chairman, and Professor Dapeng Zhao from Tohoku University as a session advisor. Before proceeding to this lecture, may I kindly invite the session chairman to say a few words. Over to Professor Jigar Kayal, sir. Hello, Kyle, sir.
Okay, thank you, Shantanu. Thank you so much. Today we have with us one of our best friends, very dynamic researcher and leader of geophysics in our geophysics family in India. And it's so nice to see you, Dr. Tiwari, after a long time. And we are all looking forward to listening to you, your vast experience, your vast knowledge in exploration geophysics as well as in solid earth geophysics. Thank you very much for accepting our humble invitation to this workshop. Thank you so much. Over to Shantanu, please.
Thank you, sir. Now may I read out a brief biodata of Dr. Tiwari. Dr. Tiwari obtained his postgraduate degree in geophysics from Banaras Hindu University, BHU, Varanasi, India. He took up a scientific career at CSIR, National Geophysical Research Institute, after receiving a PhD in geophysics from NGRI, BHU. His research interests primarily focus on deciphering subsurface, mass distribution, and mass transport relevant to a wide range of scientific and societal applications. Besides publishing well-cited research papers in leading journals, he has also contributed significantly to the projects of oil and mineral industries. Dr. Tiwari is a recipient of National Merit Scholarship, ONGC AEG Best Thesis Award, Young Scientist Award from INSA, CSIR, UPSNT, Krishnan Gold Medal by IGU, National Mineral Award by Ministry of Mines, Government of India, and Fellowship of National Academy of Sciences, India. He is also a member of several national and international committees. Now, I would like to request Dr. Tiwari to kindly enlighten us with his lecture. Over to Professor Tiwari, sir. Thank you.
Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Very good morning to all of you, Session Chair Professor Kayal and other distinguished researchers, students who joined through online media. I thought of talking to you a kind of summary what we have learned so far about lithospheric structure of Himalayan collision zone, and therefore it is not only the work carried out by the group with which I am associated with, rather it's the work done by several people across the globe. So let me start with some basic things which most of you are aware of, and also it is important that we remind it while we discussing the scientific issues in the Himalayan collision zone. It is known that the India-Asia collision has reached one of the highest, in fact, the highest mountain range in the world. And this arised because of the collision around 55 million years ago. And if we see before the collision, the movement of the plate has been much faster than the present time, the velocity of the Indian plate. And the first collision after the subduction of the Tethys Ocean below the Eurasian plate led to the starting of the mountain building in this part of the world. There had been several models right from the early 19th centuries which tried to replicate the topographic structure what we see today, and it started with a very old model.
1 second, Dr. Tiwari.
Yes.
Could you make it please full screen if possible?
Is it okay?
Thank you so much. Beautiful.
Hello. Sorry. So these models have tried to explain the evolution of Himalayan ranges as well as the Tibetan plateau. And there are primarily three models which are debated over the centuries. After the first model, which has been proposed, what we call it, understanding or under thrusting of the Indian plate below the Eurasian plate, and it was first proposed by Argon in 1924. And afterwards, it has been debated over decades and still appear to be one of the models which are being discussed. What it says that the Indian plate under thrust goes below the Eurasian plate and there is a stacking of two lithospheres and which reached the Himalaya as well as Tibet. The second competing model is the model in which it is told about the viscous thickening when two plates collided and thickened the entire lithosphere. And after certain period of time, it is also proposed that there is a delamination, the part of the viscous thickening, there is a delamination of the lithosphere which has thinned the lithosphere under the Tibetan plateau. The third model, which also very much now being validated with the geophysical observations, are the models of the subduction, in which we talk of the shallow subduction of the Indian plate below the Eurasian plate, as well as the deep subduction and the subduction from either side, which raise the Tibetan plateau. In spite of decades of intensive studies, geophysical as well as the geological studies, we still continue to debate about these models and what is the fate of Indian lithosphere below the Tibetan Plateau. So how do we know which proposition is valid over this continental collision zone? And one of the best way to test these hypotheses is to find out the present day structure and infer the geological past based on the numerical simulations and also the surface geological observation. And therefore, there had been several attempts of setting up of the numerical models, which also suggest the kind of the subduction as well as the subduction and the slab bending. These models as well as the surface geological observations suggest that nevertheless, whatever the model we choose, there is likely case of abduction as well as the thrusting of the lower crustal rocks to the surface of the earth. And if we see based on the surface geological observation, we can broadly divide these geological terrains in few parallelly strike to the collision zone geological terrains that includes the zone of the suture zone, that is often known as the Indo-Sangpo suture zone. Then we have the southern Tibetan detachment, which separate the tethys from the crystallines, and then we see the series of the thrusted rocks and the thrust faults like MCT, main central thrust, main boundary thrust, and HFT together. We also see the different parts of the ranges are from almost west to east appear to be similar because you can see the colors and you will find that all these three geological terrains spreads all over the collision zone. And we also find that a cross section either we put in central or west might represent a gross picture of the collision zone. And first 10 kilometer, if we put the cross section, we can clearly see the north dipping the thrust, the STD, which separates the tethys, and several other faults like MCT, which had been folded and again appearing after the MCT2. So these cross sections in general appear to be true all across the Himalayan collision zone. Nevertheless, we also find that though the gross picture appears to be same, but they are different from the geophysical subsurface images. Another scientific issue, which is the matter of debate, is related with the occurrences of the large earthquakes, which are originating because of the slip of the faults originated in the collision zones. And these faults, the structures, we can see governs the magnitude of the earthquakes. And what it has been proposed that there is a likelihood of the several 8+ magnitude earthquakes in this region. So the model of the collision or the understanding of the seismogenesis in this area requires detailed knowledge of the subsurface structure. Though I would quote from Lyman Sands that looking below the surface, crust and mantle is not easy, but the rewards in terms of the understanding our planet will be worth the efforts. And therefore, if we image subsurface, we will be always also able to validate one of the models like undercrusting of the mantle lithosphere, viscous thickening, and delamination, mantle delamination, and finally the third option is subductions. The other part, what we talked, as a consequence of these geodynamic models and geodynamic working, there are possibilities of several other phenomena like eclogratization or densification of the lower crust because of the pressure temperature condition. And since this is one of the highest mountain range, we can also test few of the isostatic models which are being debated. There are other phenomena which arising because of the collision, like distributed deformation, channel flow model, in which the again the flow from the lower crust has been brought because of the intrusion, and these models as well as the definition of the seismogenic zone, the limiting the rupture width and length through the transverse structure. There are several other things which can be understood in much more detail if we know the surface information. However, for today's presentation, I thought to concentrate only the part what you see in the red color, that mantle delamination and the subduction process, particularly for the origin of the Himalaya and the Tibet. And similarly, I will also be talking how the isostatic models can help us in understanding of the subsurface structure as well as the densification of the lower crust. And therefore, there are two parts where I will be trying to summarize the lithospheric structure under the Himalayan and Tibetan plateau, and then try to investigate how one of the model where it is proposed that the delamination of the mantle lithosphere is leading to the sustenance of the Tibetan plateau over the geological time period. Let me start with a very regional tomographic model which very clearly defines a long axis variation in the collision geometry. And we can see that the leading edge, which appear to be a subducting lithosphere of the Indian plate, traced to different distance from the boundary of the Indian plate, generally what we see here, and it sometimes crosses the INCO ITSZ, the surface observed suture zone. So these variations are also reflected in the analysis of the metamorphic rocks, and we find that the areas like the Western Himalaya, we have the ophiolite and also very high temperature pressure rocks exposed on the surface. However, in the eastern part, it is absent or not so far reported. And thus, even the geological model proposes that there are differences in the subduction or the underthrusting of the Indian plate along axis. Several experiments are mounted right from the Western Himalayan syntaxis to Eastern Himalayan syntaxis. And if we see from the west, we can again very clearly see that the Moho depends from around 40 kilometer to 70 kilometer, and the earthquake fault plane solutions from waveform modeling clearly shows that Lesser Himalaya is at the place where majority of the earthquakes are reported, are formed. So we can clearly see the Moho, and we can also see the likely fault which is involved in the thrust earthquakes. The gravity and density model also suggests the lithospheric geometry, and what we find that even if we go to the syntaxis belt, the structure is very different than just east of the syntaxis belt, the left density model and the right part. So one side, there is a very deep subduction, and another side, the two plates near the terrain basin are likely to be joining each other, and the upper mantle structure at the mantle suture zone appear to be either serpentinized or so, producing the gravity load. And these models are constant from the P as well as S receiver function studies across these terrains, and very clearly defines either these modified lithosphere or the thinning of the rising of the asthenosphere. When we move further east to this area, again we find a similar kind of the structure from the Indian plate south of the Indo-Gangetic plain basement, and which dips down, and there is an offset of the Moho observed near the Tarim basin, and which has been interpreted that the Indian plate underthrust are subducts as much as to the southern part of the Tarim basin. The upper crustal features are suggested to be a conductive structure in the magnetotelluric results, and also they suggest that the structures which are found in seismological data are mimicking the elliptical structure. Moving further east, when we come to the Garhwal Kumaon Himalaya, the broad features which we discussed about the deepening of the Moho, we do find the similar characteristic here as well. Nevertheless, these features are little bit different than the Western Himalaya, as the deep of the Moho is little different from the Western Himalaya. We also see that the MHT, main Himalayan thrust, which is much more clear along the same profile, is just above the low resistive zone or conductive zone in magnetotelluric and also coinciding with the low velocity zone. The MOHO structure can be also seen very clearly, which appear to be upward under the higher Himalayan crystallines. The density model in the same region, which is done through the joint modeling of the geoid, 3L anomaly, topography, Bouguer anomaly, and it suggests that again the Indian lithosphere goes much beyond the Singh-Posacho ITSZ, as well as we are able to see the thrusted, the density, higher density blocks coming up to the surface. The central Himalaya, as well, if we go particularly in the Nepal, the gentle deep of MOHO is very well reflected in the seismological studies, as well as they suggest the underplating or doubling of the MOHO or its likelihood of the densification of the MOHO. The same thing has been inferred based on the isostatic models as well as the inversion of the gravity anomaly from the Sikkim Himalaya, and we can very clearly see that the isostatically constrained density model shows the a densification of the lower crust beyond VNS, and we can see the dimension and geometry of that matches pretty well with the seismological data. And what we find another interesting thing, that the effective strength of the lithosphere as Indian plate descend to the under the Eurasian plate decreases up to the VNS, and again it starts increasing, and that happens to be almost the boundary what we find from the seismological regions. If we see again near surface, first 20 and 30 kilometers of the structure in the magnetotelluric data, we can again find the structures which are conductive coinciding with the large seismicity zone, and as well as they also find the reflection of the MHT. To make more clear of the to the lithospheric model, we can see that the Indian plate subducts as much as going almost few tens of kilometers north of the ITSZ. If we see the southern margin of the Tibet and northern margin of the Himalaya range, we can see that how the conductive structures are changing along strike. If we further move towards east over the Bhutan Himalaya, the MHT is pretty well imaged, as well as the MOHO, which is more or less following a similar trend what we were discussing, though the tip of the MOHO is little flattened than the tip one. The easternmost part, which is the very new results which appeared this year in AGR, suggest that the Arunachal Himalaya, Arunachal is further east of the Bhutan, is a bit different from the other eastern part of the region, though the crustal thickness following a similar pattern of increasing towards the north. However, the MST does not appear to be very clearly and distinctly imaged in this part of the region. So we can see the several cross sections from the uh, Nepal Himalaya to the Arunachal Himalaya in this figure, which clearly shows how along axis the upper crustal structure, as well as I talked about the structure going up to the deeper level uh, at the lithospheric level, are different. To summarize what we have so far learned from the studies across the Himalayan collision zone, we find that the crust gradually thickens from 35 to 40 kilometers in the southern side of the four-land basin, goes up to 70 to 80 kilometers beneath the pitches of the southern part of the Tibet. So the gross picture along the Himalayan collision zone appears to be similar and slowly being better known from the new results. However, they are not sufficient enough to constrain the geodynamic results. Broadly, it suggests that the Indian plate subducts below the Eurasian plate and the northern boundary of the subducting Indian plate varies as we move from west to east. The west, the subduction of the Indian lithosphere goes up to the Kunlun fault, or we can say up to the border of the Tarim basin. And in central front, as I talked, it goes north of the ITSZ up to the Pangong Suture zone, that is DNS. And in the east, still we are not very sure how much north the Indian plate subducts. So in broad way, we see that the Indian plate is subducting below the Eurasian plate with different deep, and also the causing the structural near surface structural differences, and also the differences in the lithospheric structure. So can we define this as we talk the extent of the subduction from the gravity data, from using the constraint whatever we have, and make a proposition that what kind of the model we can consider for the sustenance or isostatically uh, balance, balancing of the Tibetan plateau. And therefore, the gravity data over Himalayan and Tibetan plateau region to understand the process of the densification of the lower crust and volcanism in the northern part, and to the extent Indian lithospheric mantle subduction beneath the Himalayan Tibet. Finally, we also wanted to see that whether the delamination model, the model which we talked earlier, in which the upper mantle lithosphere delaminate from the lithosphere and provides the enough buoyancy for sustenance of the high plateau region of the Tibet. So we wanted to test this hypothesis. So before that, let us see what do we know about Tibetan Plateau. And we know that there are large number of east-west trending crustal extensional fault which are producing normal and strike slip earthquakes. And these high regions spread apart into the lower surrounding region in almost all the sides. One side terrain basin, other east, and again on the southern side. If we see the regional tomography model, we see that even the Tibetan Plateau has two distinct variations in the PN speeds, and the northern Tibetan Plateau had little higher velocity than the lower, which is interpreted as warm and the cold region. And similar observations can be found even in the other tomographic models as well. These tomographic models, based on which there has been again discussions of lithospheric foundering and underthrusting of the Indian plate below the Tibetan plate. These models also talk of the tearing of the Indian mantle lithosphere, because we can see there are some transverse features very clearly seen in the S-wave velocity, and therefore it appears that the subducting Indian plate is teared in the northern side. They are reflected in the surface measured velocity from the GPS, and therefore we thought that how can we really compile all these information together to comprehend a model of the Tibetan region. And we used a tool like isostatic compensation model using coherence analysis, which is very which can be generally explained that if the topography is not compensated at the depth, it will not have the Bugge anomaly, and if all the topography is compensated at depth, it will have topography as well as Bugge anomaly. So actual case will lie in these between the transition, and it will be like a weak plate or a weak lithospheric strength to the strong lithospheric strength, and the correlation between topography and gravity anomaly will define the effective strength of the underlying lithosphere. Finally, based on this, we can also use the multi-parametric gravity isostatic models where topography, gravity anomaly, and geoid, which is more reflected from the deeper structure, can be modeled together. And we followed this approach to see how can we find out the variations in the isostatic compensations as well as the lithospheric structure. And what we find that there is a very distinct variation from west to east, the effective strength of the lithosphere, which are very well reflected in the coherence analysis, and also from south to north. Over the Himalayan region, it is little higher compared to the Tibetan Plateau, and similarly, if we see the western Himalayan region has more effective strength compared to the Eastern Himalayan region. These models allow us to constrain our the compensation model, which the geometry of the crust and lithosphere. In modeling, we also use the other constraint derived from the seismological observations, and therefore compiled first all the data which has been generated over the southern Tibet and entire Tibetan Plateau. And here is a comparison. We can see the crustal thickness estimates from the different seismological experiments, and offset in Moho at certain places are very clearly clear. These constraints from the isostatic model as well as from the seismological data allowed us to make the model of the lithospheric structure, and there are three representative models shown over here. One is western region, another is central region, and the right one is the eastern region. The bottom cross sections are the reflections of the primarily the deeper features, and the upper features are mainly reflecting the shallow structures. So we discussed broadly the shallow structure appear to be similar, except the deep of the structures. However, the most striking thing is in the central part, where you can see two very distinct structures, like thinning of the mantle lithosphere, and also the equilobratization of the lower crust, which is absent in the northern as well as in the easternmost part. So based on these models, we proposed two things. One is how far the Indian plate and the crust below or subduct below the Tibetan Plateau, and the model whether the Tibetan Plateau had a kind of the removal of the lithospheric mantle under the Tibetan Plateau, and we propose that the sustenance of the Tibetan Plateau is mainly because of the removal of the lithospheric mantle. So the final and the take-home message from what we studied and discussed today is that the lithosphere is thick beneath the Himalaya, while it is relatively thin beneath the Tibetan Plateau, which mimic the variation in the crustal thickness as well. The thinner crust and thin lithosphere under northern Tibetan Plateau suggest the role of the mantle isostacy, where the temperature is anomalously high, which also corroborates with the presence of the recent potassic volcanism, inefficient SN propagation, east and southwest oriented global positioning system displacement, and large shear wave splitting. So these models, what I discussed in the previous slide, also supported by several other complementary observations. So with this, I thank all of you for patient hearing and will be happy to take any query you have.
Thank you very much, sir, for your detailed talk on lithospheric structure at different parts of Himalaya using seismological and different geophysical tools.
It was really a nice presentation. Now, may I request our session chairman, Professor J.R. Kyle, for his remarks. Over to Professor J.R. Kyle.
Oh, thank you, Shantanu. Dr. Tiwari, congratulations. It was really so enlightening lecture, so educative. You made us to understand the Himalayan structure. I just have a small query. I might have missed you. You have said that MHT is possibly missing below Arunachal Himalaya. And what about Sikkim Himalaya? I might have missed you. Would you please?
Yeah, in Sikkim Himalaya, there appears to be some reflection of MHT, but as we go further east of the Bhutan, it's not very well reflected in the seismological observations.
Okay, thank you so much. Over to Shantanu, please. Over to Professor Zhao.
Okay. Yes, over to Professor Zhao. Yes.
For a nice lecture. I really learned a lot from you. And I'm interested in the deeper events, deeper quakes in this region. You mentioned there are some thrusting events associated with the northward subduction of the Indian plate. And also you mentioned that there could be a southward subduction of the Asia plate. I wonder if you found any threatening events associated with Asia plate subduction.
Yeah, in the subduction model, if you remember, I have shown for the Tibetan Plateau three distinct possibilities. One is the shallow subduction of the Indian plate going below the Tibetan plate. Another is the subduction of the Indian plate having a very deep angle. And the third model had the subduction from either side leading towards. So the data, what we have presently, which we have summarized, appears that we do not have enough data to say that the subductions from north to south, probably we have to go further north of the Tibetan Plateau to have some seismological experiments and test this hypothesis. The bottom line, what we find that whether it is the subduction from either side or subduction from only from the southern side, under the Tibetan Plateau, the mantle lithosphere appear to be thin. That is the only inference which we can probably tell with quite confidence whether they are consequence of the subduction from either sides or only the subduction from south. So we presently with the our model will not be able to say it.
Okay, and another question is, did you find any earthquakes within the subducting Indian plate? In addition to the thrusting events on the top, did you find any events within the subducting plate? Any deeper event, deeper earthquakes within the subducting Indian plate?
Region of I am not able to get you. Can you repeat little slow so that I can get?
For example, in the subducting Pacific plate, Western Pacific plate, there are some earthquakes occurred in the subducting slab.
Okay.
Not only on the top.
Well,
I wonder how the Indian plate.
Yes, it's a very interesting question. I have not dealt mainly on the seismogenesis part, and I was talking more on the first call. But you are very much right. The slab detached earthquakes, which are common in some of the subduction zones. And in one of the regions where there has been a proposition is the syntaxis, the eastern syntaxis and also in the western syntaxis. We do not see very clearly in the Himalayan collision zone.
Okay. And also some researchers mentioned there are some volcanoes or geothermal areas in Himalaya. What do you think about that?
So far, what I remember is the volcanism is since last 10 million years or so. So they are the syngentic and they are for the collision related volcanism. So, but the present volcanism I'm not aware of.
So there's no active volcano
No active volcano.
in the region, you think? Okay, I see. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll take some questions from our online attendees. May I request Dr. Antara Sharma for question and answer session, please. Over to Dr. Antara.
Thank you, sir. So first of all, I would like to thank Professor V.M. Tiwari, sir, for delivering such an informative talk. Sir, I'm going to read out the questions asked by the participants. Sir, may we proceed, sir, for the
Yes,
Q&A
please.
session?
Please go ahead. If
Thank
you
you, sir.
permit. Yes.
Thank you, sir. So the first question is, how the eastern syntaxis, that is Lohit Himalaya, fits into the gross Himalayan model?
Sorry. Muted. So, so far what we have discussed today is primarily about the zone of the Himalayan collision zone. I did not go much about the eastern syntaxis as well as the western syntaxis. The model in the eastern syntaxis is a bit different, and it appears that the present day subduction is seized in the eastern syntaxis. However, the subduction reliefs are very well mapped in the eastern syntaxis. There is a strong evidence of the strike slip movement of the eastern syntaxis. So the eastern syntaxis is certainly very different from the Himalayan collision.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Sir, next question is, sir, you mentioned about the anisotropic velocity layer. How did you find the thickness of the different anisotropic layer present in a region? And did you find the anisotropic material present in a region?
Okay, these results are not derived by us. This is a compilation of the results from the earlier studies. So I cannot answer about the inferences about what has been drawn by the other.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, and the last question is, it is often said that the Northeast Himalaya may maybe generate a very large earthquake in the near future. Does your study also suggest the same?
Okay, again, in this presentation, we have not discussed about the generation of the earthquakes, but in general, we know that there has been a continued subduction and continued collision of Indian plate with the Eurasian plate, and a lot of strain is being accumulated in the Himalayan collision zone. Now the question is, there will be an earthquake, but what will be the magnitude and what will be the time, which we have yet to infer, but certainly in the broader sense, if we see, there is a likelihood of earthquakes of the magnitude, you can say large magnitude in the eastern as well as the western Himalaya.
Thank you, sir. Due to time constraints, we cannot proceed for more questions. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Atra. We have reached the end of this session. Now may I request Dr. Annesa Dr. Hazarika for vote of thanks. Over to Dr. Annesa.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar and good morning from India. It is my proud privilege to propose a vote of thanks to all who have helped in making this technical session a resounding success. On behalf of the CSIR NIST family and the entire organizing committee of IVWGST 2021, I convey our gratitude and sincere thanks to Dr. V.M. Tiwari for accepting our invitation and delivering such an educative talk on the topic lithospheric structure of Himalayan collision zone. Thank you, Dr. Tiwari, for enlightening us with your valuable insights and immense experiences and deep knowledge on understanding the structural geometry of the lithosphere beneath the Himalayan collision zone. I'd like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to Dr. G. Narahari Shastri, Honorable Director of CSIR NIST Jorhat, for extending moral support and ubiquitous help in conducting IVWGST 2021. I take this opportunity to express our profuse gratitude and sincere thanks to our international advisor of this workshop, Professor Andrew J. Michael from USGS, USC, for his generous support and constant encouragement. I also convey my sincere thanks to our session advisor, Professor Daping Zhao, eminent scientist from Tohoku University, Japan, for sparing his valuable time and gracing us today with his honorable presence and providing continuous support throughout this workshop. I also express my sincere thanks and regards to our session chairman, Professor J.R. Kayal, former Deputy Director General of GSI, and session co-chairman, Dr. Saurabh Borua, Chief Scientist of CSIR NIST, for being constantly connected with this program and providing guidance. I also extend our deep sense of gratitude to Dr. Shantanu Borua, the convener of this workshop, for conceptualizing such a splendid idea to organize this virtual workshop and thus facilitate a conduit for the direct access and scientific exchange of the geosciences community with the experts and pioneers in seismology and tectonics from across the globe. I also extend my deep sense of appreciation to all the participants who have joined us from all over the world for their active participation and kind cooperation. Finally, I solicit your continued support during the course of this workshop and look forward to see you all for the next session of the day at 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The speaker for the session will be Muhammad Farooq Abdelwahid from King Abdulaziz University, Saudi Arabia, and the topic of his lecture will be S-graph system for seismic waveform analysis and source parameters estimation, review and case study. With this, I conclude this session. Once again, thank you all for joining us this morning. Dhanyabad.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. See you this evening.